Hey, coach, what should I be paying attention to in this whole COVID pandemic thing going on? It's probably not what you're thinking.
Five, four, three, two, one, zero. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Dolfini, Landlord Coach. It's so very good to see you all. Thank you for joining me. My name is Mark Dolfini, the Landlord Coach and the host of the Landlord Coach Daily-ish show. So welcome today. Yeah, you probably, for those of you who are watching for my show yesterday, the day before, unfortunately, my laptop needed to go get some surgery done. Yeah, so my laptop had to get surgery, and everything's good to go. Thank you for your prayers. But yeah, I had to get that done. So the Windows kept crashing and blah 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 blah. So whatever they did, someone smarter than me, thankfully, got this all situated and got me back up and running. So that leaves me to a question that I received from one of my coaching students about what should I be thinking about right now during this pandemic. I mean, there's so much going on that they should be thinking about buying, should be thinking about all this other stuff. And right now is a really good time to be paying attention to your infrastructure. Now's a really good time to be getting strong where you're weak. And no one's going to know what's going to happen. Prior to the election, everybody's thinking no matter who wins, it's going to be, if one party wins, it's going to be one way. It's going to be, if another party wins, it's going to be another way. The fact of the matter is there's so many unknowns right now. It's hard to predict. It really, really is. And of course, one person on the fringe has got one bracket of the figured out. It's like, I told you all, I said this all along that, the moon was going to crack in half and a giant vulture was going to fly out. Whatever, man. Yeah, okay, good for you. I'm glad you picked it. But right now, you got to understand that we will at some point come into a post-COVID world. I know that that's hard to imagine. I don't know if we're going to start, renumbering the calendar at that point, like start at 1 AC after COVID, I don't even know. Like whatever that looks like, it's just hard to know. But yes, I am here to predict right now, I'm going to take a stand that there will be a post-COVID world. And there probably will be, no doubt, a generation that's defined by this, that's going to be freaked out about anything, germ-related. And we're going to be wearing masks forever, and who knows. But this is the way. There will be a post-COVID world. So naturally, I was thinking about this. There's lots of people that were taking this time to sharpen their saw. Lots of people were picking up books. A lot of people were getting smart. They were, in my own particular case, lots of people were signing up for my course, Become a VIP in the rental business. Just a lot of different people were looking to educate themselves, sharpen the saw. Some people were turning, inward, which, I don't really think that that's a good approach. I think it's always best to, reach outward, in any way that makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of where I think it makes sense for a lot of people to look at your business, look at your real estate business, look at your rental business, and look where there's ways that you can put in infrastructure that's going to benefit you in the long run, right? So when I bring up this topic of leasing, this is part of the Landlord Cycle, which you've seen me put this up before, but the Landlord Cycle is specifically in the leasing cycle. The leasing cycle runs inside this Landlord Cycle, right? So for those of you who have not seen this before, day zero starts all the way at the top left there, where it's day zero, and day zero is where you're making $0, right? And it goes to day one, which is where someone is handing you a check and you're handing over keys. In between day zero and day one, you try to minimize that time as much as possible by using a vacancy checklist and your applications and things like that, all the things that need to be done. And ideally, you're not the one doing them. You have a virtual assistant handling this stuff. But then from day one, you go to day 7, which is the next bubble there, the next node. And that is the end of the onboarding process. That is day 7. And day 7, again, these are arbitrary numbers. Sometimes the onboarding process should last a little longer. And but I don't think it should go any shorter, but definitely it might go a little longer if someone had a particularly rough move in. And then it goes around the horn to the bottom there where it's day 30. Now, day 30 is the beginning of the collection cycle, right? So this is the This is the collection cycle, where if you have a year's lease, you have 11 of those collection cycles that run. Okay. This is what someone should be doing in the first of every month, the third day, the fourth day, the seventh day, the 12th day, whatever. Right. And then you go to day 245, which is the middle node at the bottom there in the landlord cycle. And day 245 is 120 days prior to the lease expiration. So if you have a lease that is less than a year, that node, that day 245, again, it's an arbitrary number, but it should be 120 days prior to the lease expiration date, unless you're in a market such as a student market, college student market, where it makes sense for you to push that back even further. Like here at Purdue, it's not uncommon to reach out to students who've only been in their property a month or two, right? So, at month 2 out of a 12-month lease, you may be reaching back out to them to say, hey, are you interested in renewal, for the next school year, right? So again, that day 245 is a little bit arbitrary, but again, it's just the name of that node. And then you get to day 365, and at day 365, that's the last day of the lease, right? That's the last day, and you're either going back to day 0, where they're turning over the keys back to you, or back to day 1, where basically this whole cycle starts over again. So the leasing cycle would obviously be a cycle that starts between day 0 and day 1, and that's part of the getting that vacancy filled, right? Getting from day 0, where you're making $0, to day 1 as quickly as possible. Now, I want to point something out here. Now, the leasing cycle is going to be different for everybody, and ideally, some people are completely fine and they say, you know what, I don't mind doing the leasing myself. I would make the argument that no matter what you're paying somebody, I hope you as the investor didn't get into this job to create a leasing job for yourself. Not taking away from what leasing agents do. I have an amazing leasing agent in my property management company, and I've had some really good ones. But the point is that I'm paying them to do a job that they're much more well suited at what I'm doing. Even if I'm good at it, I still want them to do that job, because I want to be out doing other things. Right? Whether that's working a flip, doing videos, or, teaching, coaching, digging wells in Kenya, preaching the gospel, whatever that is. These are the things that I want to be doing, and not creating a bunch of separate jobs for myself. So in this particular case, we're talking about leasing, and, not to get into the weeds in terms of the specifics in the leasing function, but you do need to have a checklist that someone else is running and that someone else does. Okay. So in other words, I have a really, really good VA who is really, really good at going through and making sure that the checklist items are items that are actually read. You can put a checklist in front of me. I will not read it. I will not go through it. I will not pull it out. I won't even reference it, because I'm not a checklist-based person, even though I know the benefits of them. I mean, I flew in the Marine Corps. I flew in an airplane for 2,000 hours. I don't even remember exactly, but it was over 2,000 hours in the C-130. And I would reference the checklist then because it's part of my duties, part of my job. But I mean, after that, my interests changed. My personality changed. It shifted. And even though I see the benefit of a checklist, I'm just flat not going to do it. So that's why it's really, really good to surround myself with people who are checklist oriented, who are going to give me the tasks. And because I'm task oriented, I'm going to go do those tasks. I'm going to make sure the tasks are done. But you put a checklist in front of me, I'm just flat not going to do it. So it's really interesting to know your personality style and personality type, and surround yourself with the people who are most likely to not necessarily be just like you, but people who are going to fill in where you're weak. So again, when you're doing the leasing cycle, that's why it would be important to have a virtual assistant who will go through and making sure the sign gets placed in the yard. It gets uploaded and syndicated to the to the website, or even prior to that, making sure that the pricing has been updated, that you're not you're not going on an old price. You're actually updated a new price based on market data and those sorts of things. So that's the really, really important thing. That's what I would say right now in this COVID, time. Take the time to get smart and get that process lined out. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you out any way that I can. That's all I have for today. Please make sure that you place a value on your free time, because if you don't, someone else will. But most important, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you next time.